I was really good in math and physics. So that was my favorite subject since high school. That's actually how I ended up in engineering. My name is Alphonsine Imana-Raguha. I am a consulting engineer at Cisco in the US, but I was born in Rwanda. It was April 6th, 1994. That night, we heard like a loud explosion in the sky. We rushed to listen to our radio, and we learned that President of Rwanda, that his plane was shut down. That was the beginning of the genocide. I was 13 years old. I remember just hiding in the bushes, not sleeping at home at night. My dad was like, hide here, I'm going to find another place where we can safely all hide. As soon as my dad left, we immediately overheard the group of militiamen say that they just killed him. I didn't feel the ground. I didn't feel the air around me. There was no wind, there was no sun. I was already dead. Eventually, I found my 3 younger siblings. They were in the orphanage. At that point, I was like, I don't know what's gonna happen, but my life has a meaning. Just watching how one person could make a big difference, I started on my nonprofit, Rising Above the Storms. We work with the homeless kids. We help them go back to school. I could have ended on the street. I could have been one of them, and just seeing them actually dreaming, it gives me hope. Doesn't matter how you do it, make a goal to change one life. Seeing how Cisco has enabled me to do something I love so much, I can't imagine a better feeling in this life.
Between survival and inspiration, there's Alphonsine Imana-Raguha.
The electricity is always there. We don't worry about it. We don't think about it. Never do we think about an attack on the power grid. It is like this all over the world. It is like this in Finland. Turku Energia supplies electricity for hundreds of thousands of people. Because its operations network was independent from IT, an attack could have found its way into the grid and no one would have known, until it was too late. By extending the IT network out to operations, Cisco was able to help secure the entire system, both now and in the future. And with Cisco IoT technology, the new virtually fail-proof system is as reliable as it is secure, one unified network. It's why tonight, in Turku, life will go on like it always has and always will.
Between on and always on, there's a bridge. Cisco, the bridge to possible.
Every day, every night, everywhere. People are living on the streets. We see it. We all know it's a problem. But what can we do? In Brisbane, Australia, 2 young mates decided to do something. They would start small. They decided not to call them homeless. They would call them friends. Then, they outfitted a van with a washer, dryer and a shower and hit the streets of Brisbane to wash their friends' clothes. Orange Sky was born. One van quickly became 2, then 4, then 20. The operation, staff, logistics needed to scale, and quickly. So Orange Sky found a partner. Cisco tailored a Meraki network that can grow as they grow. Intuitive dashboards at the head office and robust Wi-Fi in every vehicle let Orange Sky monitor vans and onboard devices remotely via the cloud. Cisco WebEx connects leaders in real time with staff and volunteers, whose energy and enthusiasm is essential to the model's success. What happened? Something wonderful. While friends waited for their clothes to wash and dry, they talked. A simple connection, joining a community, perhaps for the first time in years. If one load of laundry can do that, who knows what's possible? Between cleaning clothes and creating a community, there's a bridge. Cisco, the bridge to possible.
Electricity is like the air we breathe. It's always there when we need it, which is always. Evergy serves nearly 2 million commercial, residential, and industrial customers across Kansas and Missouri. Farms, hospitals, businesses, and homes all rely on Evergy to keep the lights on, the food cold, their families warm, and their data safe. So Cisco CX partnered with Converge One, and together they worked with Evergy on a truly radical solution, completely redesigning and revitalizing their network infrastructure by combining Cisco DNA and Cisco ICE. And what typically takes 3 years was completed in just 18 months.
One thing that really stood out is the way Cisco stayed with us through the project. It wasn't just a design, implement, sell, and then move on, but it really was about working together with the teams.
Converge One and CX's expertise gave Evergy the stability and flexibility their business demands today, while setting them up for the future with an easier-to-manage infrastructure featuring improved reporting and monitoring, ensuring electricity and security is there when we need it, which is always. Between lighting the way and leading the way, there's a bridge. Cisco, the bridge to possible.
I have a lot of ambitious dreams, like making the best tea in Japan and sharing it with the rest of the world.
This is Namiki Ishiyama. She grows tea with her family in Ibaraki Prefecture, Japan, on their farm established in 1871. Namiki sells her family's tea online at the marketplace created by Rakuten, a global leader in internet services. Namiki's ambitious dreams may come true sooner than she thinks, because the world is about to change. Rakuten has partnered with Cisco to do something that has never been done before, to build a new mobile network, cloud-based, fully virtualized, and optimized for the coming 5G revolution. This is Tarek Amin, CTO at Rakuten Mobile.
My belief is this platform is going to change everything.
This is 5G. More data, more power, new tools we can't yet imagine, artificial intelligence in the palm of our hand.
Making connectivity affordable. I think Rakuten and Cisco is going to do that, and that's going to change the ecosystem of telecommunication in this country and across the world.
What will 5G mean to Namiki's tea business? Rakuten and its partner Cisco are excited to find out.
My husband and I are 6th generation tea farmers. My son will be the 7th generation. That is my dream.
Between tradition and transformation, there's a bridge. Cisco, the bridge to possible.
Running makes me feel happy. My favorite part about cross country is like the mental part. I'm Max. When I was 11 years old, I was diagnosed with aplastic anemia. And if I didn't find a donor, I probably wouldn't be here right now.
I'm Dylan and I'm 22. 3 years ago, I joined the registry at Be The Match. It was simple, Just swab your mouth and send it in.
Be the Match is a global database of donors. To save more lives, they needed to make more matches. So they consulted with technology integrator E+. The solution? Cloud-based management made possible by Cisco UCS. Now, Be the Match team members use Cisco WebEx and Contact Center to collaborate with patients, donors, and their critical courier network. And their data is secure, protected by Cisco Umbrella Security.
Knowing what Max had to go through, what I had to do was easy.
One person in the world was a match to me. It was pretty special.
The Cisco network allows Be the Match to make matches faster than ever. And that's just the start of what's possible.
I am excited to meet Max. I don't think he knows it yet, but he's always gonna have a #1 fan.
Me and Dylan are DNA twins. Dylan's like my brother.
Between a life-threatening disease and a life-altering donation, there's a bridge. Cisco, the bridge to possible. When someone asks, where were you when golf history was made? You don't want to say, at home on my couch. You want to be there. You want that connection. Not just watching history, but part of it. Welcome to the 2019 US Open at Pebble Beach. The first US Open championship in history to bring fully secure course-wide Wi-Fi to fans, players, broadcasters, and event organizers. We're not just talking about players' scores and ball positions. This is intent-based networking, the power of Wi-Fi 6 and data analytics in concert. Delivering super-fast connectivity, real-time video, sharing, wayfinding, and top tracer technology. For any event, any size, anywhere, this is Cisco's legendary network expertise to go. Now everyone, on the course and at home, can be part of the moment. Where were you when history was made? Between the game and the game as you've never known it, there's a bridge. Cisco, the bridge to possible.
My feet go boom, 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 boom. My heart beats boom, 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 boom. Heart speed goes boom, 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 boom. My feet go boom, boom, boom. Roll on, I'm going, 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 going. There's a big stone, it's coming, 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 coming on. Roll on, I'm going, 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 going. There's a big stone, it's coming, 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 coming on. Coming, 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 coming on. Coming, 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 coming on. Boom, boom, boom. My feet go boom, 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 boom. My heart beats boom, 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 boom. Heart speed goes boom, 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 boom. My feet go.
April 16th, 2018. This is Tokyo. This is Rakuten. These are Cisco executives invited to a meeting with Rakuten. This is Tarek Amin, CTO of Rakuten Mobile. This is Prakash Suthar, team leader from Cisco Customer Experience.
Namaskar. Good morning.
This is a story about doing something that's never been done before.
Prakash, I need someone to help me build the world's first end-to-end cloud-native network. We need a partner.
Let's do it.
In order for this to work, it has to be optimized for 5G.
We'll design it from scratch.
Fully automated.
Fully virtualized.
Cloud.
Core.
Transport.
Virtual RAN.
Everything. It will be the first of its kind.
Oh, yeah.
You can figure it out?
We can figure it out.
This is their idea. It's an ambitious idea, an unprecedented idea.
It's true.
But this is what industry executives called it.
Impossible.
But that didn't stop them, that just made them hungry.
So Prakash, how about developers?
We'll create a platform.
Different systems.
Different partners
Working
working
together.
together. What else?
This is the plane that took the Rakuten team to San Jose.
Okay, so it takes 3 weeks to implement a traditional radio site.
With automation, we can do it in 10 minutes. and more secure,
Zero touch,
zero defect.
ready for 5G.
Just upgrade the software.
This is Tarek's impressed face. This went on for months.
We're gonna need new hardware,
Then we'll partner with your vendor.
but our design,
You got it.
Then Tarek said,
and we want you to manage the whole chain, oversee the integration of vendors and partners.
February 3rd, 2019. This is Rakuten and Cisco and their impossible idea making their first call.
Oh my god.
And the world just changed. Rakuten and Cisco customer experience, the right solutions, the right technology, most importantly, the right people. Between ideas and invention, there's a bridge. Cisco, the bridge to possible. Every once in a while, an opportunity comes along, a really big opportunity, as in $6 trillion big. Because that's how much business is shifting to the cloud-native countries and the companies that are capitalizing on Wi-Fi everywhere with security. Like the Netherlands, where smart ports and connected highways are helping alleviate one of the most dense transportation networks in the world. In Italy, where Dallara helps automakers around the world make high-performance cars faster and safer. Cisco is digitally transforming their business, the way they work, think, and interact. At Rakuten in Japan, who partnered with Cisco to build the first cloud-based and fully virtualized mobile network, a model for the future of telecommunications around the world.
Oh my god.
The hyperfast connections and the wildly transfigured networks they will spawn is going to change everything. And only Cisco has the knowledge, the experience, and the solutions to make it happen. Between the internet that's here and the internet that's coming, there's a bridge. Cisco, the bridge to possible.
My name's Ami Tank. I've been at Cisco for 20 years. Grace Girls Home is a girls' orphanage in Sri Lanka. We have over 40 girls right now. They come from really difficult backgrounds, tremendous circumstances, yet they have resilience, they've got passion, and they want to grow up to help others. We provide them with housing, care, food, nutrition, doctors, mental health care, dental visits, and all of that. I am the chief of staff, and I manage the board. There's so many ways that technology can be used to end poverty, to help these girls. One is through online education, but we need a way to track it, to manage it, to work with the girls, and to continually kind of improve on it. When you allow a girl to stand on her own 2 feet, either through education, opportunity, exposure, whatever, you can raise a community. My mom, who has just recently passed away, she lived and grew up in pure poverty. She always persevered. Before she passed away, she said, "You've got to continue to give in life because that's the purpose of life." That to me is really what inspires me. One girl said to me, "Promise me when you leave here, you'll be my voice." And I told her, I said, "When I leave here, I'm going to tell everybody about you."
Between Sri Lanka's lost girls and a future full of opportunity, there's Ami Tank.
My name's Roy Vessel. I've been at Cisco for 12 years. Outside of Cisco, I work in teaching cybersecurity and cyber defense to youth through a program called Cyber Patriot and through the United States Air Force Civil Air Patrol. I took the team over and fell in love with it. We started at the age of 12, work all the way through high school. I want them to know how to take care of themselves and protect their information, protect themselves, protect their families. I've got kids that have graduated through my program that are now working for the government. I've got folks that are working in corporations looking for cyber threats and how do we prevent them. Cisco's been heavily involved. If you have something that you have on your heart or a passion that you want to reach out and do, talk to your manager. The satisfaction of seeing these kids grow, seeing those light bulbs go off, that's my payment.
Between curious kids and the future of cybersecurity, there's Roy Vestal.
my name is Lucy. Is my English name. The Chinese name is Xiu Fan. I come from Beijing, China. I have been working in Cisco for 19 years. I'm a sales manager in customer experience team. I think Cisco is really a great company. Cisco support us giving back live days. We have some energy. We have the eager from the heart. So everybody, when they know what I'm doing, they just raise hand. Lucy, give me a chance. I want to join. I can make something happen. I work for the Gray and Shine Foundation since 6 years ago. They had a lot of programs, but the major program is support rural teacher and rural children for the reading program. The children really need resources to support them and to get the learning capability to support their future. We actually leverage Cisco some technology like WebEx. We provide some training to the teacher. They can, improve their skill and their reading knowledge, and they can know the word better. I think together we have a big power. Is not only one or two children can benefit from that. I'm proud of that.
Between rural school kids and a universe of learning, there's Lucy Guo.
Okay, give it a try.
Between wisdom and curiosity, there's a bridge. Between ideas and inspiration, trauma and treatment.
Gained a couple of more pounds since last time.
That's good for the baby.
Between the people and their leaders.
Affects the heart.
How's the hospital?
It's been very busy. It was busier today
Than yesterday.
When are you gonna come back?
Collaboration
And we have in the center.
and creativity.
You don't want that sketch to compete with the image.
Between the moments that make us who we are and keeping them safe, private,
That's great.
and secure, there's WebEx.
Beautiful.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the second ever Cisco Secure Virtual Summit. We're so glad that you could join us here today, and we've got a really incredible agenda, which is all aimed around helping you and your organizations succeed through changing and challenging times. My name is Nish Parker, and I'm a Security Communications Manager here at Cisco, and I'm excited to be joined by Jason Wright to host this event.
Thanks, Nish. I'm really glad to be here as well. We've got some really great speakers that are going to be joining us today throughout the day. In addition to one of my good friends, G. Rittenhouse, the SVP and GM of the Security Business Unit, we have Megan Rapinoe, who is the captain of the U.S. National Women's Soccer Team. And in addition to that, she's also a gold medal Olympian and has been going around and having some conversations and doing some motivational speaking and becoming a bit of an activist as well. And so she's going to talk to us a little bit about what it's like to be in crunch time, what you need to do level and execute successfully, both on and off the field in our professional lives and in our personal lives. So it's going to be a great show, and I'm excited to hear from both of these guests today.
It's going to be an amazing session. We'll then be joined by Teresa Payton, who's a hugely influential cybersecurity professional. She's the CEO and president of Fortalis, and also the first ever female CIO of the White House. Her and I caught up a couple of weeks ago to talk about resilience and practice self-care. We talked about how to overcome cybersecurity fatigue, and we also caught up on her new book. It's called Manipulated: Inside the Cyber War to Hijack Elections and Distort the Truth.
And then after Nish and Teresa's session, we'll jump into a session with John Olczyk from ESG and Jeff Reed, our Senior VP of Security Products, to talk about the importance of integrated security.
Yes, and it's so great to have him on because integration is really at the cornerstone of Cisco's new Cisco Secure strategy. As a company, we're all really all in in connecting products and solutions, including third-party APIs. Now, I love that we have an analyst on because it's a great perspective, it's an objective perspective on what cybersecurity professionals and organizations are prioritizing right now.
Yes, and you're all probably familiar with SecureX that we launched at Cisco Live US. We're very excited about this. It's absolutely a game changer. This is our new integrated security platform. So John and Jeff are going to speak to a little bit about what that means for the industry. And then afterwards, I'm going to jump in and give you a quick 7 or 8 minute demonstration of SecureX and show you how you can get these automated security workflows working on your behalf for you instantaneously, how you can gain better visibility and showcase how you can work with all of your security technologies so that you ultimately have a more efficient security experience with your security infrastructure, because that's what SecureX is all about.
Super exciting. And to close, we have a customer fireside chat on the strategic CISO. We'll be joined by customers Lou Saviano from Skillsoft and Cisco's own CISO, Steve Martino, who are going to be chatting about how they've been coping with themselves and their organizations during these uncertain times. They'll also share advice for new cybersecurity professionals and why it's so important to have a simplified approach when it comes to cybersecurity. So it's shaping up to be a really great day. And without further ado, let's hit the pitch with Megan Rapinoe and G. Rittenhouse.
Welcome, everyone, to our keynote on the topic of playing to win, the importance of teamwork, overcoming adversity, and trailblazing in uncertain times. My name is G. Rittenhouse, and I'm honored to introduce our very special guest today. For those of you who are fans of the world's game, or as we call it here in the States, soccer, you already know her. For the very few that don't, she is a two-time Olympian, winning the gold medal in the 2012 London Games. She is a three-time FIFA Women's World Cup participant, winning 2 golds and 1 silver. Let me just say, you and Sue just crushed it at this year's ESPYs. Finally, she is a wonderful individual, a tremendous activist. Please join me in giving a huge virtual welcome to Megan Rapinoe. Megan, how are you?
I'm doing pretty well. I mean, as well as you can do in a moment we have never seen before, and likely in our lifetimes we'll never see again, hopefully. But yeah, I'm overall managing and doing pretty well. I feel very lucky.
Megan, thank you for joining us today. Like you say, it must be in a very strange time for you, given the shortened season. You've probably given 1 million of these virtual interviews. You're much better at it than I am. I see you everywhere on TV, your channel. You've just been crushing it. But imagine right now, there are 80,000 people clapping for you. You can't hear them, but they are right there with you. Welcome. I just want to give you some background about the audience and where we're coming from. Today's audience is just full of cybersecurity professionals. And the 2 things that you should know about them are, one, that this group faces active adversaries. You probably hear them in the news that are trying to steal or ransom bank account information, company data, hospital records. They're right on the front lines protecting those communities. And second, they come from an amazingly diverse set of backgrounds. There's no one way of becoming a security professional, one career path and whatnot. They grow up doing so many things and then are attracted to security. And when I heard that you were coming, it reminded me so much of your career when you were growing up, basketball, track, soccer, all these things. Tell us a little bit of how did you get to soccer when you're so talented at so many different ones?
I mean, I think I was always most talented at soccer. Maybe I was talented when I was younger at those other things, but I think that would have fizzled out pretty quickly. But my older brother played soccer. Back, I guess, when I was growing up, I think it was a growing sport, but it really obviously has grown so much since then. So it wasn't super popular. I'm from a pretty small town in Northern California. So, just played in the rec leagues and all that, but we didn't even really have a competitive team, like the top level competitive team in Reading. So ended up having to travel to that. But there was always just this sense of, I like the team sports, I think, better, but I feel like in soccer, you get to do both. It's very much kind of an individual thing. And you get to express yourself and sort of have your very unique personality show on the field while also being a part of a bigger team. So it always just, I think it was the freedom of it as well. There's not that many rules. I always would forget the plays in basketball, and baseball had too many rules, and softball, and it was too slow. So I think there's a sense of freedom that I feel on the soccer field that, drew me in then, and that I still feel to this day.
And so it's just the classic story, the older brother setting up cones, making you do drills and pushing you hard. And by the way, I mean, the individual team, we're going to hold that thought, because we're going to come back to that, because you're essentially famous about that point. In addition to being a champion, you're also a leader. Was that always true as well? Or was there a time, a coach or a play where people just started looking to you as that leader?
No, I don't think no, not from a very young age. I wasn't like, I was always a twin as well. And Rachel was much more of the leader, I think, amongst us, especially as we got kind of into middle school and high school. She was, sort of the more assertive one, and I just kind of like followed her, and I was perfectly happy to just be in her shadow and be able to kind of follow in her footsteps. But I think as I've gotten older, I, sort of matured into myself. And then really, like, what happened on the national team, like, everybody retired. So then all of a sudden I went from being like just sort of like a middle age player in the, sort of younger ones, but like growing up. And then all of a sudden, me and a few other players, we were like, I guess we're the veterans. And so then it took, a little bit of time to really kind of grow and mature into that role. And, having the benefit also, the national team is just a little different because, some players have been on there 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and they might be a starter on the team, might be one of the best players. But to have the knowledge of, a long career on the national team and how to navigate things, I think like you sort of just naturally, by osmosis even, like just get that sort of leadership. You kind of know the ropes and you can help people, bring along. And then I think couple that with what this team has taken on off of the field, things I'm very passionate about, but also feel very comfortable speaking out. I think those two kind of mended together a little bit, especially in the last couple of years, has kind of put me in that leadership position.
I'm also impressed on how the team brings in the young players, and not just in, at the end where the game is already decided, but like in key situations, you have that young group in there as well that then can gain that experience and continue through the evolution.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the sort of putting the young player into a position where it's like, what can you handle at whatever age? We're not going to ask our young player to also, be one of the, leaders on the team and always be talking to the media and going back and forth with the coaches. And so it's like, we don't ask that. And I think like older players, just because you've been around more, you have a little bit more comfortability or capacity with that. Whereas like all we really want to do is get the best out of everyone. So as a young player, like they do need to be more carefree. Like I remember even just my experiences from, my first World Cup to now, I'm like, oh my God, I just was like, this is awesome. You just get to kind of show up and play. And then going through this one, I'm like, oh my God, there's so much more behind the scenes than I ever knew. But I wouldn't have been able to handle it back then. I wouldn't have known even what to do. And now, it's easier in that sense. But also it's like, you need those players you need that carefreeness, because if everyone was trying to do everything all the time, it would be just a big mess.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, I've never experienced it, but for me, just walking on a field in front of 100,000 people just would be, that's an experience you have to get used to in and of itself, for sure. It's incredible. Besides the teamwork, it's, we're also focusing on overcoming adversity and trailblazing. Persistence in the face of cyber threats is such a key part of our industry. You make it look so easy as a world-class athlete and champion, even on the biggest moments, like the penalty kick in the finals. I mean, like, What goes on in your head when like everything stops, everything is focused on you at the biggest times? How do you deal with that?
I mean, to be honest, speaking of cybersecurity, I feel like when I get, like Snapchat, here's your verification code. I get more freaked out about that because I'm like, who's trying to get into my, I don't even Snapchat. That's
Don't click on it.
I know. I'm like, who's trying to get in there? I mean, I think a lot of it is practice. I've gone through a lot of these moments, and it's impossible to replicate being in the most pressurized moment. But I always try to, at least to myself, like verbalize the worst possible thing that can happen. Like the worst thing that could happen was, we're in the, World Cup final and we get a penalty kick and we're in, a shootout and I'm the last one. And like, I lose the World Cup for my team.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what are you going to do? It's like, that'd be terrible. I would hate that, but I don't know. It's like, I've been fortunate to win most of the games in my career. I've also lost a lot and lost some big ones, lost, 2 club championships and lost in an Olympics and lost in a World Cup final. So, I kind of just try to take it as it comes. And, I think routine as well in those moments really helped me. So I just try to do the same thing every time. I think it's almost like a meditative process of just trying to calm down and taking myself out of the moment almost and just, focusing on what is in front of me. And then just relying, I guess, on a lot of practice and talent and hoping for the best. And if it goes horribly wrong, I guess it just goes horribly wrong, but it normally doesn't. So
I like probably every kid have always done like 3, 2, 1 but that's very different than actually standing up and doing it. So that's incredible. And in terms of persistence, early in your career, sophomore year, you tore your ACL. Come back in your junior year, a couple games in, it happens again. Like that how do you just sit there and go like, I got it, like work through that, I'm going to come back yet a third time? Like, that just is a lot of mental fortitude to take seasons off just to train like that. How do you do that?
I think I have like some kind of short-term memory loss with things, honestly, because I get asked this a lot. I think the way that I try to approach it is like a sort of day by day, week by week. I think you can get very easily overwhelmed if you're trying to solve the whole thing or, contextualize the whole thing at one time, particularly with an injury with an athlete. Yeah, your whole life changed, you're in a way, your whole life is taken away. This is, something, especially when I got injured as a pro, it was like, this is my livelihood. This is potentially my career. This is everything I've worked for. This might be the end of my career. What does that mean? This is my financial security, all of that. So I really do try to take it back to like, what can I do today and what am I focused on this week? And then, I think if you get into that groove and sometimes of course I'm, sitting there on the couch wallowing and just a big pile of nothing. But I think when I start to get into that groove, I get 2 and 3 and 4 months down the road and, you're sort of the culmination of all these days that you've put in a lot of work and focused on, and you're that much closer to your goal. And you can kind of look at what you can do and what you have done as opposed to everything you can't do yet. Mm-hmm. And so that helps me personally. I think otherwise it's way too overwhelming and stressful to live in that space. With some of my knee injuries, it's like, okay, you can't play for 6 to 9 months. If every day I'm thinking, I can't play, then it's like going to be a terrible existence. So what can you do in the moment? What other things can you focus on as well? I've always been a big believer in, I just have a lot more passions and interests outside of soccer as well. I think soccer is very fulfilling in so many ways and has brought me all over the world. I'll forever be thankful, but it isn't my whole life. And it can be, especially as you get older, a little redundant in ways. So where am I challenging myself? What areas am I growing in? And certainly when you have an injury, you have a little bit more time on your hands, do that kind of stuff. So taking advantage of those moments as well to keep growing as a person outside of soccer, I think is really important for me, and not just getting like sucked into the one thing.
Yeah, no, I think that's great advice. Just on that point, when you do that, do you have a goal? One of the things that cybersecurity professionals are really passionate about is that protective role, that they are standing in between these attackers and protecting. Do you have a similar goal as you're trying to go through this? I want to be here by then, or is it just enjoy the recovery and try to work your way through it?
Yeah, I definitely think there's an end goal. I think, if we're talking about my knee injury, it's obviously you want to get back on the field. But I think in order to really reach your goal, I really did try to break down, like, how did we even get here? What are we overcoming? So I think if you don't understand the problem, so to speak, then, you might get 6 months down the road, but maybe the same problem still exists that you didn't address. That's going to put you at more risk for injury or more risk for, a security attack or whatever it is. So really like breaking down the process and understanding each kind of like foundational building block that you're working with this big goal in mind. So for me, of course, it's always getting back out on the field and being strong, but what caused this breakdown to begin with? Is there an area on my body that, was overcompensating and it just took it no longer? And so how do I build that area back? Maybe it's a mechanics thing. Maybe it's just a muscle thing or a strength thing. So kind of really like breaking everything down to then when you come back, like I didn't want to just come back the same thing. And that's kind of impossible. Like, how can we come back better? How can we come back more safe and stronger and put in a position that this doesn't happen again?
That's a great point. Changing gears a little bit to the trailblazing part of the conversation. One of the things I've always enjoyed watching you and the team in soccer is the individual celebration after the goal, but then again, coming together as that team. And I think you said it so well earlier, your love about it is this kind of individualness and the team piece. You had an iconic pose after the free kick against France, and that smile on your face is just pure joy. But then once you got in with the teammates, I mean, there was a completely different persona. Where did the pose come from? Is that something that like you rehearse in front of the mirror and really kind of get it down? Is that spontaneous? How does that happen?
I did it one time before leaving for the World Cup in a friendly we had in Denver against Australia, I think. I don't know where it came from, to be honest, where the original thought to do it was. I mean, make no mistake, I like attention and I do not shy away from it. And I view myself as, of course, I'm an athlete, that's obvious, but I view myself as an entertainer in a big way. I mean, I think sports are incredible for all the things they bring out, but like, you want it to be fun. If I'm going to be in front of and commit my life and, sacrifice all this time that I have to do training alone and all of that, like, I don't train alone. So, I can get in front of all these people and not do anything. I never understood that. I think too, like, I haven't been the player that's always scored a lot of the goals. And I never understood when people score the goal, that's the whole point of the game. And they're just like, yeah, I scored the goal. I'm like, this is the whole point of the game and just a chance to have fun and really kind of ham it up. So I think in that moment, I mean, that post sort of became, had a life of its own in so many ways with the controversy that preceded it and the stress, and the pressure in the tournament and what was happening in the tournament and beyond and around the world and all of that. So it did something all its own. But yeah, I definitely was like, I'm in a crowd full of, basically 80% French people who are dying to beat the United States. And they just know that they can't. And like, they hate me for scoring, but they also they kind of like it. And so I'm like, you kind of like what's happening. And like, you're rooting for us because our team stands for so much. but it's like we're going against your team. So there's so many dynamics going on. You have to enjoy the cauldron while you're in it, I think.
Well, with all the extra stuff going on, it for me, it captured this. There was always a bit of a suggestion that perhaps you and the rest of the American team wouldn't be able to win. And that expression just put away all doubt at that time. There was no doubt where you and the team were going. And the celebration with your teammates just made it clear that this was a team effort, that nothing's going to stand in your way. I really, at that time, we didn't know, I guess, who was going to play you next, but there was no doubt that it wasn't going to even be close. So it was a perfect moment. It was a perfect moment. And it did set you up.
That's the kind of cool thing about scoring a goal as well. It's like, of course, one person scores the goal. So they get this kind of like initial moment, but then, being the person that has not scored the goal a lot or assisted or whatever, like when everyone does come together, like everyone knows that everyone had to be involved. And it's like, it is the whole point of the game. So if you were the one that, the defender that made the tackle that led to the play to score the goal, you feel just as much a part of it as anyone else. So it's like, there's like the two celebrations that get to happen. And it really is a special moment.
That's awesome. And of course, it also has been able to give you a global platform. You have a lot of other passions. You're promoting diversity and equal pay, diversity and systemic racism. These things are like front and center right now. Diversity in the security space is especially critical. Because of course, the adversaries that we face, they're diverse from that perspective. And so we have to have a community of minds on how to deal with this. You've been promoting young women and all the way, down to girls through soccer. You've been dealing with systemic racism. How do you bring these other issues to front on your platform?
Well, I look at it not as different issues. I feel like they're all sort of the same issues. So if we, look at kind of like a real zoomed out view of society, or what, systemic racism is, or just a society founded on white supremacy, if you want to say that, it's also a society founded on, patriarchy. And so having the male at the center of everything, or, being able-bodied. And so you start to get into intersectionality where these things cross. So what if, you're a gay female athlete instead of just a female athlete, or instead of just a male athlete? Or what if you have a disability? What if you have a disability and you're Black? What if you are, an undocumented person and you're gay? All of these things, I think, to me, feel like the same thing. It's the idea that really society was kind of only set up for one thing and everyone else just kind of has to fit into it. So how do we start to peel back the layers on that? I mean, certainly racism and systemic racism is at the root, I think, of everything. And so that is like, priority number one in terms of being dismantled. But even, within that, we see, trans community, being murdered at disproportionate rates. So how do we start to deal with that? How do we start to deal with the patriarchy, within our own systems and our own communities, our own life, to kind of break that down? So I feel like as I've started in my kind of younger careers, I started to talk about gay rights and came out, and then we started talking about equal pay. Little dots were connected there. And certainly in 2016, kneeling with Colin Kaepernick really kind of solidified that feeling for me of like, okay, it's actually just all connected. If we can't see that in another person, how do we break everything down? So at times I've asked people to, be my ally or to stand up for me in gay rights. Then I'm like, okay, then that's me kind of doing, the same kind of thing for someone else. And you don't have to walk a mile in someone's shoes, but you do have to believe them. And I think that's where, we start to get into people's different perspectives. And like, I don't know what it's like to be Black, and I never will. I will never understand that. I'll never go through anything, but I can believe the Black person who's telling me what they're going through. And so I kind of look at things from that perspective. It's like, if someone's telling you something about their experience, that is the truth. That is their experience. So kind of going at it from that. And so when I do talk about, I feel like I can talk about any sort of issue around equality, because we don't have equality in this country for a lot of different reasons, and they're all very interconnected. So I think I sort of found that in 2016 as like the foundation for me even talking about equality in any sense.
Yeah, and that was an incredible stand that you took. I would imagine perhaps, even coming, as you said, from Reading and a different part of the world, identifying yourself like that is a big step, and one that you didn't shy away from. So we all applaud you for that. For the benefit of the folks listening, are there ways that you found for them to get engaged and for them to participate and get active?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a million different ways. How long do we have to talk about it? But I think the first thing really is to educate yourself, because when we think about racism, I think a lot of people think about it in terms of the interpersonal racism. So am I racist towards you, or are you racist towards me, or your coworker, your family? Are you saying slurs? Are you saying these things? And that's one aspect of racism. But the whole society is really set up to benefit one particular group of people over another. And as a white person, we do have white privilege. And that doesn't mean that we didn't work hard. It doesn't mean that your life wasn't hard, all of these things. It just wasn't harder because of the color of your skin. So in starting to understand some of these themes, I guess, for lack of better, throughout society, we can then combat it. And the idea around not just, being not racist yourself, but actually being anti-racism, which means wherever you see it, you root it out and try to balance out the equation. So, there's great books. We're lucky here in Seattle to have Ijeoma Oluo, who wrote an amazing book a couple years ago called You Want to Talk About Race, which does a huge labor for us in breaking things down and us starting to understand. White Fragility is a great one. And then I think for white people, no matter how far you're into the movement or not, maybe you're brand new, maybe you've been in it a while, really listening to the people who are leading the movement. Black queer women in particular have always been at the core of every movement. They haven't really gotten the credit that they deserve. But what are they saying? What is, the leaders of Black Lives Matter saying, or Black Future Collective, or different activists or people? And to really kind of take this time to listen and to learn. And then so when you do step into the conversation, you have kind of an educational base, and like, we're going to mess up, we're going to say something wrong, and that's okay. That can't stop us from trying. And it's difficult because it does challenge everything we really have been taught about this country and our history, and what this country was founded on: life, liberty, justice, the pursuit of happiness. Everybody is created equal, and that was not the whole story, certainly. And so, it's okay that that might be uncomfortable for you, but let's learn the real history. Let's understand how these things came to be, so we can see them when it's happening, and then work to break them down.
Fabulous advice, Megan. I want to just thank you for your time, giving us such great insights on teamwork, perseverance, and of course trailblazing in the face of opposition. Fantastic. Thank you so much for spending time with us today, and just stay safe. Looking forward to seeing you get back out on the soccer field and all of your other pursuits.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Wow, what an incredible session. Megan shared some really great insights and experiences, and I know for sure that she inspired me, and I'm sure she inspired many of you too. I love that she touched on inclusivity, and I thought that tied in really well to Cisco's new purpose, which is around powering an inclusive future for all. So next up, I was super lucky a couple of weeks ago to catch up with Teresa Payton. We discussed what the cybersecurity landscape looks like today, including how to navigate these challenging times, and I loved hearing her predictions for tomorrow. Let's roll the clip. Security is top of mind for everyone right now, and now more than ever. I'm so excited to be joined by a talented author of 3 books and the first female CIO of the White House, Teresa Payton. Teresa, thank you so much for joining us and welcome. I'm really looking forward to what you have to share. So Teresa, take it away.
Hi, everybody. I'd like to think that I know a thing or two about emergency planning, but with COVID-19, all bets are off. But as the former White House Chief Information Officer and someone who makes a living planning for and executing resiliency and recovery plans during unthinkable disasters, from my time in banking, Hurricane Andrew, to 9/11, I'm constantly in something I like to refer to as reimagining mode. I'll explain a little bit more about that in a minute. But at the center of it all, I think about resiliency, both of the mission and operations, but also securing the people by designing for them and also thinking about their resiliency and my own. Now, when COVID-19 happened, I want to share with you a little quote that I really have been thinking about a lot as we're in this pandemic, moving to post-pandemic and post-pandemic execution mode. The pain you feel today is the strength you feel tomorrow. So for every challenge encountered, there is an opportunity for growth. So as dire as things got, I see a lot of hope for the future, and I want to share that hope with you. And as businesses necessarily reimagine their operations for this post-COVID era, cyber criminals will do the same. So as we know, countries around the world were forced to shut down, to flatten the curve, and they did just that. And everyone is racing for a cure to give our public health infrastructure a chance to absorb the cases, but also to hopefully successfully treat and successfully cure anybody who comes down with it, and to prevent it in the future. But for many businesses, revenues declined dramatically, and for some businesses, revenues evaporated with very little notice. But what didn't evaporate for them was fixed costs, any debt, any brick and mortar technology infrastructure, all of which was sitting idle for some period of time. So as businesses start to transform their operations, as I've learned over the years, cyber criminals are never going to let a good crisis go to waste. So let's talk about reimagining. You know, it's a term that Disney uses, and I'm a huge Disney fan. As a matter of fact, my family and I run every year in the Star Wars Disney races at Walt Disney World. And of course, due to COVID-19, those races were necessarily canceled. We ran them virtually, though, and earned our medals. But reimagining is that term that Disney uses to describe how they adapt, reorient, and change business operations, anything from storylines to rides to merchandise and more. And oftentimes, it's driven by internal forces. This time, Disney will most likely be reimagining due to an external force of COVID-19. A reimagining alters an original process or idea in such a major way that, in my words, it becomes a supercharged remake. COVID-19 became, in 2020, a gold mine of opportunity also for cybercrime. So as businesses were sending employees home to work, and by the way, I have to say, Cisco, what a great job you did. Many of my clients got a call from you. You offered WebEx to them for free so that they could communicate with their clients and with their employees, and it worked like a champ. So I have to give a plug here for like what an amazing greater good thing that you did as people were going through this crisis. But as they were, these cyber criminals struck. Our phones at Fortiless were buzzing and ringing every day with crisis calls, cyber intrusions such as unauthorized logins, business email compromise resulting in huge amounts of wire transfer fraud, and ransomware attacks against operations were accelerating at a dizzying pace. I've never seen anything like it. So we're approaching mid-year. How does 2020 end? I mean, where are cyber criminals going to go once we lock down their ability to use these methods? You have the research. We know what they're doing. So now we know what the fix is. Cyber operatives always go to the nexus of innovation and where the action is. So as businesses are reimagining and introducing innovation post-COVID-19, cyber criminals are going to be ready to take full advantage. Boardrooms and C-suites are accelerating their transformation roadmaps to make up for lost time and lost revenue. So as we transform our previous interactions to contactless transactions and virtual experiences, the crimes will necessarily transform. Again, I want to go back to sort of this concept of reimagining. I love this quote from Walt Disney. I actually took a picture of it the last time I was at Disneyland, and it was on one of the walls, and it said, when we consider a new project, we really study it, not just the surface idea, but everything about it. That's going to be key as we go into where are we headed next with innovation, where will the cyber criminals be, and then how do we think about resiliency of the operation and of you as an individual. So let's talk about some of the predictions I have for 2021. And by the way, I revealed almost all of these predictions, except for the first bullet point, at the end of 2019. I always like to look beyond the next year to give out predictions every year and then hold myself accountable as to whether or not I was right or wrong. And what I can tell you is I did not predict COVID-19. So that one I did not have. So my first prediction is the innovations that we are doing right now and that we will continue to do, and it's going to be a very exciting time in technology, but those innovations will lead to new innovations in cybercrime. So if we thought we had it all figured out before, it's all going to change on us. The next prediction that I have is that 5G will actually accelerate cybercrime. So as we move to 5G networks everywhere and enabling Internet of Everything on those 5G networks, my prediction is that the cyber criminals will be there and potentially that a smart city could be held for ransom that is moved to 5G and Internet of Everything. The next thing on my list of predictions is that misinformation campaigns will hit global elections yet again. So as you think about, not only are we innovating in business, but governments are innovating as well. So one of the things we're innovating is how will people feel about standing in line on election day? Will people be willing to actually stand at the polls? Will more people take advantage of early voting? And will some people take advantage because of their health issues and concerns of absentee ballots and voting by mail? So it's my belief system that misinformation campaigns will hit the global elections again. Next, AI poisoning will be a thing. As we move towards more contactless service within service delivery to customers, one of the things I see companies talking about accelerating is their artificial intelligence usage. One area where artificial intelligence is used are customer service chatbots, for example, but there are other places it's used as well. My belief system is, as we rush to transform and implement AI, there will be poisoning of either the data used to build those algorithms or tampering of the algorithms themselves. And because AI is designed to operate as a black box, it's going to be hard to distinguish whether or not things are working as designed and haven't been tampered with. My next prediction is that ransomware will go all in on the cloud. Again, as businesses accelerate their innovation and transformation efforts, It is my belief they're going to take a lot more advantage of the cloud than they ever have in the past. And because they're going to be transforming their operations with the cloud, cyber criminals will be right there looking to take advantage of actually locking up the operations with a ransomware attack. And then my last bonus prediction for 2021, which I don't have on the slide, is that my new book, Manipulated, will be a #1 bestseller. I'm just kidding. But anyways, I thought I'd throw that bonus in there. Let's talk about your resiliency plan. So now that you kind of have an idea of where I think cybercrime is going to head as you're transforming your operations, I want to talk about the resiliency plans that need to be updated. So if you look, for example, at this picture, you can look at this picture and see scary barriers, or you can look at that picture and say, I want to be on the other side of that. So those are merely milestones. And so as CEOs, boards, and you think beyond the pandemic, see these as milestones. So what needs to be done, if you think about how your operations and how your processes worked pre-COVID-19, they necessarily have to change. It's going to be a different environment. Sort of the new normal will constantly be changing on us, right? There will be interim changes and stages of the new normal. This is an opportune time to seize massive levels of innovation in your operations. And businesses who don't choose it for themselves, you may find that it's mandated for you by government organizations, meaning well, telling customers, how they have to interact with you, for example, or whether or not you're allowed to operate at 50%, 75%, or 30% capacity, or maybe you're not allowed to operate at all. Be thinking about also customer behaviors, at least for a period of time, are very different than they were at the beginning of 2020. During periods of disruption, this is a great time for innovation, but your burnout potential is a very real threat. So we know cyber criminals are not going to give up, but oftentimes when I look at organizations' resiliency plans, they do not account for having to run from business as usual to a resiliency plan and accounting for potential employee burnout. So there's exciting innovations going on, and there's going to be ongoing systemic change. The stakes are really high, and cyber criminals are going to be right there trying to reap rewards. Given the rapid pace businesses will be reimagining operations, what that means is the future of security and how we think about things has to change. Business continuity and resiliency plans are evolving right now. So as you're updating your plans, this is the time to put into that plan the human, yourself, and all of the people that'll be supporting the resiliency plan. So let's talk about self-care and space to generate ideas. Your resiliency plans must include you. And if you're thinking to yourself, I don't think we have in there how we're going to avoid burnout when we're in a crisis. Like those two don't seem to go together. Well, guess what? They actually do. So I want to talk to you a little bit about self-care. First of all, there's no perfect work-life formula. So as your company is reimagining your new normal and your new business model, the technology strategy that supports that, and you're thinking about the security strategy that goes with it, it's really important to be thinking about how you're going to have human resiliency. So there's a phrase I want to remove from work conversations, work-life balance. Get rid of that phrase. The reason why I don't like that term is work-life balancing sort of implies everybody else has it figured out except for you, because like you're a loser or something and you can't figure this out. It's not work-life balance. It's work-life choices. I don't want to put an unfair burden on everyone to think there's some type of balancing act that goes on. So I'm going to share with you something very personal to me, which is how I try to make it all work. And I have to say, life is perfectly imperfect for me at pretty much all times, and I wouldn't trade it. I wouldn't trade it for anything. So what do I do to hold myself accountable to work-life choices, as I call them? I actually have a system called my 5 Fs. Now, it may only be 4 Fs for you, and the system that I have for me may not work for you, but I want to share it with you. And the system that I use creates space for what I call the 3 Rs. renewal, recharging, and reimagining. And you have to make time and space for this. So what I've done is my 5 F's are faith, family, fellowship in community service, friends, and fighting to protect people. So what are you fighting for at work? We spend a lot of time at work. So it's got to be rewarding and it's got to be your passion. So those are my 5 F's. Guess what I do? I actually color code my calendar. Each one of those F's has a color. And at the end of the month, I hold myself accountable. And if I find myself spending a lot more time on work than I am on some of the other things, I make a commitment to myself and I book the time in my calendar. That's how you create space for the 3 R's, for renewal, recharging, and reimagining. Just a little bit more personally on this. Look, I don't know about you, but sometimes it's hard to define a self-care routine when you're in the middle of a resiliency execution operation and coming out of that. So here are the things that I'm doing that's a little different that you may want to consider for yourself. I'm getting up a little earlier. I've got 2 rescue Great Pyrenees, 3 kids, husband. We're all working here under one roof. So I get up a little earlier to get a jump on the day. I make sure I always get my run in. I make sure I have time for meditation and prayer. On the weekends, my daughter, who's 11, she and I usually are traveling for soccer. Instead, we're baking and picking up groceries for neighbors and family members who are older and who are immunity system compromised. And this is a way for us to take our minds off things, but to also check in on other people and to see a smile on their face when we drop something off on the porch, honk the horn, and they come out and they wave. During the work in the school week, we actually sit down the night before, we schedule time. When are we all taking a break for dinner? And we all take that break time together. We actually watched The Last Dance with Michael Jordan. And then lastly, my advice is each week may be different for you. My advice is just keep at it and find a routine and find a system that works well for you. I also want to remind you that it's not a sign of weakness to talk to someone and tell them you feel anxious or you feel nervous or you just can't sleep. I mean, if you don't feel like yourself, if you don't feel like your normal self, please seek help. You may have an EAP program that you can access. It'll be confidential. It'll be free. Reach out to an old friend. Reach out to a family member. If you need an outlet, reach out to me on LinkedIn. We're all part of the good guys, right? We got to stick together and be there to support each other and cheer each other on. And then lastly, just real quick on the book, if you want to read a book or make sure your family and friends read a book that helps them make sense of all the misinformation and manipulation campaigns regarding COVID-19, international issues, and yes, all the different elections happening around the globe, you can buy the new book. It's an ebook format, audio format, and hard copy. And just remember, let's all stick together. We're in this together. We're part of the good guys. Cisco, I can't thank you enough for giving me the opportunity today to spend time with everybody. Again, I just encourage you to reach out to me on LinkedIn if I can be of service to you. And now I'll turn it back over to Cisco.
Teresa, thank you so much. That was fascinating, educational, insightful, future-looking, and most of all, human. And I'm sure that you've inspired many that are here watching with us, but you certainly inspired me. So what I loved was what you said about reimagining, and you mentioned Disney as a source of inspiration for that. So I'm really interested to hear what else or who else inspires you.
No, thank you. Walt Disney, I'm a huge fan of Walt Disney and even the Pixar model, how they do things in teams and small cells, and they're constantly holding themselves accountable. They do the little shorts, which is for innovation, and they test out different theories. The other inspiration I have is from my own family. We come from a long line of U.S. military and law enforcement. And so that protect and defend runs throughout sort of the fabric of the family. And so that really inspires me to get up and think about protecting and defending others.
That's wonderful and heartwarming to hear. And actually, I feel like I've grown personally, professionally in just the last few minutes. So thank you for that. And what I loved most about your talk was hearing the positivity and the experiences that you shared through what is quite a challenging time for many. So I look forward to continuing the conversation. Those of us that are based in the US, you can enter the competition and win a copy of Teresa's book. So lucky you. Thank you so much, Teresa, again for joining us, and take care, everyone.
Thanks for having me. And please have me back. I really enjoyed my time with everybody.
I'm sure we will. Thanks. Okay, we'll be right back. Enjoy this quick break, courtesy of SecureX.
Oh, hi there. You know, as a Chief Information Security Officer, a CISO, I'm helping our company take its next big leap forward. And you know, it does feel just like that. Mostly. Because these days, cybersecurity isn't only an IT thing, it's a business thing, since basically all businesses run on technology. Maintaining security that's in step with our company's growth has become furiously complex. That's because digital transformation and cloud expansion actually expand our attack surface. So we installed another new security tool, which is usually not integrated, creating yet another set of metrics to watch, analyze, and administer. It's like herding security cats, and dogs, and hamsters. It was getting out of hand until we found Cisco Secure X. Secure X is the cloud-native connective tissue that brings all of our security products together. Now there's better visibility across our infrastructure, and we've automated some of our workflows to help our teams. Plus, there's fewer silos and more collaboration because our tools are more integrated. Secure X comes as part of our Cisco products, so it just feels simpler. It works. Okay. Let's put this puppy to bed, shall we? Yeah. Why are all my security metaphors animal metaphors? Can't help myself.
Up next, we've got our very own Jeff Reed, SVP of Products, and John Olczyk from ESG, our analyst guest, who are going to talk about what they've seen in the industry and how things have changed and what's driving our future together as a group of products that need to work together a little bit more. So be sure as an audience that you're typing in your questions into the live chat menu. And with that, I'll turn things over to Jeff and John. Guys, take it away.
Great. Hey, thanks so much, Jason. And John, welcome.
It's good to be here, Jeff.
Good to see you again. So look, we've got a really interesting piece of research that you just completed and wanted to kind of dig into that and some of the implications thereof. So I guess kind of first of all, maybe just a little bit of the summaries of the challenges that you see security teams facing as part of the research that you did.
Well, there's no shortage of challenges, Jeff, and especially in this climate where because of the pandemic, we've had to move people to working remotely. We've spun up a lot of cloud resources. So we've expanded the attack surface. We've added complexity to security. And of course, security can't get in the way of the business. Now, our research says that 40% of organizations have different infrastructure, different security tools for different infrastructures. So for instance, I've got my cloud security tools. I've got my network security tools. I've got my virtualization or VMware security tools. And that adds complexity. It adds cost. It adds redundancy. And one of the things we're seeing with this pandemic, people are struggling with is policy management. So if I've got a policy in 3 different places, somehow I have to coordinate those, somehow I have to manage those. That doesn't scale. And so like I said, there's no shortage of challenges, but that's the acute challenge we're seeing right now.
Right now. Yeah, that makes sense. And you talked to, it's actually one of the things I found most interesting was, I think you said 76% of organizations found that their time to detect and respond had actually increased over the past 2 years. And I guess that's an implication of all the different tools and different attack surfaces, correct?
Yeah, more data, more sophisticated attacks. We know that attacks are multi-phased through a kill chain, which is why we're leveraging the MITRE ATT&CK framework, for example. And then it's people and skills too. I mean, as you know, this is a difficult thing. You have experts at Cisco who specialize in this. Well, if I'm a small manufacturing company in the Midwest or a a seafood processing place here in New England, I may not be able to recruit those people or have those people, so things are getting more difficult.
Yeah, very good. And one thing that your research touches on is we in security, we've had a long history of best of breed and best of breed products and tools. You actually highlight some of the potential issues that strategy poses. You mind kind of elaborating on that a little more?
No, not at all. So historically, that was fine because these infrastructures grew organically. So we had, AV, and then we had web threats. We put a web gateway in place or an email gateway, but that just doesn't scale. So you've got disparate solutions, siloed solutions, what have you. We need tools for each of those. We need management for each of those. We need to train people on each of those. And then, of course, we need to somehow amalgamate the data. Yeah, exactly. And we've relied on humans to do that. And goodness me, they've put in a monumental effort. But tribal knowledge or one person who's really good at this stuff doesn't scale. And of course, if that person leaves, that's problematic. So the other interesting thing is that we do some research with the Information Systems Security Association, ISSA, every year. 70% of organizations said they had that the cybersecurity skills shortage impacted them.
Yeah.
And we asked them, well, what's the impact? 38% said we deploy technologies, but we can't use them to their full potential. Mm-hmm. So you can imagine that situation is exacerbated if you've got multiple tools.
Yeah,
so it's scale, it's effectiveness. I mean, you must see this at Cisco as well.
Yeah, I mean, we have, and I mean, frankly, we even contributed a bit to that problem. Where frankly we hadn't historically, we didn't do a lot from an operational perspective to tie, to provide you like visibility cross product, the ease at which you can bring context in between. And so that, that's actually been a huge focus of ours over the last couple of years, because we heard so much the focus around, I think we as a security industry have essentially made the customers and security teams like do a bunch of additional work to integrate because we didn't do that on their behalf. And that takes away the time and effort for them to kind of go after the highest value capabilities within their team. So that makes sense. So kind of given those concerns around all the different tools and teams, et cetera, like what are you telling CISOs? What are you kind of advising in terms of how they should think about a more integrated approach?
It's interesting, Jeff, because what we see from our research is that 86% of organizations believe that integrating their technologies is either the top priority that they have or one of their top 5 priorities. So we don't really have to tell them to do this. They're getting it. Now, where they struggle is, okay, well, how do I do this and what do I do here? And what we're saying is, well, let's take a step back and really understand, where are your bottlenecks? Is it a skills bottleneck? Is it a process bottleneck? Are you having trouble detecting threats? Are you having trouble responding to threats? So those kinds of things are really important. You also have to look at where you are from an infrastructure perspective. So no one's going to take all their tools, rip them out, and replace them with Cisco or any other vendor, right? So what's the starting place? Where's your pain point? And then how do you move forward from there? So it's a really kind of detailed look at where you're starting from. Mm-hmm. What are your goals and objectives for as a security organization and your security program? And then how do you implement these technologies to support that? And one other really important thing is, how can I support the business?
Yeah.
I mean, as a CISO, that's my job, is to enable the business. And therefore, it's not just security efficacy or operational efficiency. It's got to be, are there new applications I need to support? Are there new users I need to support? Are there threats that are particular to my industry or to my organization? Mm-hmm. We're doing some research on CISO's relationships with C-suites and the board. Well, that's all about risk management, right?
Exactly.
So how can I lower my cyber risk? How can I get the metrics to communicate that I'm lowering my cyber risk? How can I build a program where I understand where my risks are and I build programs and measure my progress?
Another topic I want to kind of get into. So the good news is sounds like CISOs and you have some great data in terms of how many are looking at consolidation, either a major shift or a minor shift, and I think it's north of 75%. So how does this consolidation, how are you talking to CISOs about this consolidation approach, how they should think about things like integrated security platforms? Tell us a little bit about your counsel for them.
It really is important that they look at this from a long and a short-term perspective. So you have to set the goals and the long-term strategy, but you also need to understand what tool you're starting with, how you'll implement that, get the constituencies on board. So for instance, get the security engineering team on board, get the network operations team on board, get the IT operations team on board. And to that extent, you have to really work with the CIO because this should improve processes between security and IT ops and network ops. Yeah. So you want to do that. You want to build the coordinated processes. You want to assess how the processes are going today. And again, you really want to look at, well, where do I start? How do I get this going? How am I going to measure success? So for instance, the thesis here is I start with one product, I add a second product, the two work well together to do the 1 + 1 = more than 2. All right, well, what's that more than 2 look like, Jeff? Does it mean reduction in alerts? Does it mean faster time to detection and response? Does it mean that analysts can do more investigations per day? And then once you've done that, how do you measure those things so that you can fine-tune your policy? And then longer term, you're going to add a third product, a fourth, and you want to make sure you're getting those incremental benefits. So again, it's important to start up front with a plan, get buy-in from the constituencies, and then really kind of cheerlead or lead this plan effectively.
So there's a change management process to this, is I think really what you're saying in terms of working across the different organizations within IT and security.
That's right. And you have to sell the long-term benefit here because, as you mentioned before, we have a culture of security professionals, CISSPs, who've been brought up thinking best of breed. Yeah. And they're going to resist. Now, if you're the CISO, you can mandate this, but you don't want to do that. You want buy-in. And the buy-in is, look, you can compare the ERP solutions, or not the ERP, the EDR solutions. You can compare the network traffic analysis solutions. Fine. But what we want to do is get to a whole is greater than the sum of the parts. Here's how we do it. Here's why we're doing it. Get that buy-in.
And are there specific benefits you're seeing CISOs look to and provide more, like they see more value in terms of maybe it's time to detection or it's, lessening the burden on my staff? Are there certain ones that you see more commonly? Or is it really, really dependent on the individual firm and kind of where they are?
It's all over the board, but let me say that here's a commonality, is better threat prevention. So we tend to kind of dwell on detection and response. Better threat prevention. Threat prevention is a quick win.
Yeah, the further you get that.
That's basically reducing the attack surface, right?
Yeah.
So I don't have to do as much. But then absolutely it's faster detection, but it's more thorough detection. As you mentioned before, right? A good state-sponsored cyber campaign is going to be low and slow. It's going to try to fly under the radar. So I may not detect it on my endpoint alone or my network alone or my cloud alone or email or web or what have you. It's the cumulative knowledge of understanding all of the steps that would go to conduct a cyber attack that are important. And Cisco's in the networking business and the network security business is in your blood. Understanding what's going on in the network, because the network is the connectivity or the connective tissue to everything, right? So when things are traversing the network, you have to know about them. And if you know what process on what endpoint started that, when that came in, what else it's doing, who else is that's all really a cumulative thing. And again, we've relied on people to do that, but we can't do that anymore.
Yeah, no, and that's really interesting because our SecureX threat hunting service, and it's exactly it's those low signal threats that it's really shown to be very effective at finding. So things where deception's going on, or basically pre-deployment, there's the staging pieces that kind of historically haven't been well identified by any single tool. So, yep.
These solutions, it's one thing to have better analytics and better visibility. It's another thing to be able to use these technologies for automation. So I need help finding and fetching the right data. I may need help quarantining a system. I may need help blocking further attacks. All of that is part of the process. And if we can take those tasks away from people, automate them, all the better.
No, very cool. So last question from me. You may have some more for me, but so when you think about like going forward, securing, the future for our customers, other like key aspects you would like to highlight or think that they should be aware of as they look at this journey to a more consolidated or kind of platform approach?
Solutions have to be easy to deploy. They have to be easy to use, but flexible, meaning my level 1 analysts get value out of it, and my most sophisticated analysts get out of it. I want an open solution, right? And I want it to add value to my existing infrastructure. So can you do all of those things?
We're working on it. So, and that's actually a pretty good segue in terms of like the approach we're taking with our platform, SecureX. We started as no additional costs. So if you have invested in Cisco security, you get SecureX for no additional fee. Quick time to value. Our stake in the ground is 15 minutes. We hope that within 15 minutes you'll be up and running. You can have integrations with your existing Cisco portfolio and starting to see things in that. And then the one thing that I'm really excited about is the customizable aspect of it. So we have over 70 different, we call them tiles, that you come as part of that can be customized. So depending on your role and what you do, you'll hopefully be able to get the data that's most impactful for you on a daily basis. And that can kind of be the start point of your day. And then clearly you can drill in and be able to pivot across the different tools and technologies in the portfolio. So that's the absolute strategy for us going forward with SecureX and what we're doing from a platform perspective. So with that,
open and
yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, work with my SIM, all that stuff.
Absolutely. So you'll see even out of the box integrations, SIMs absolutely. Also IT tools, so things like ServiceNow. Like I see a vulnerability in this endpoint, can I automatically create a ticket? Integrations into cloud platforms like AWS, Azure. So absolutely, and you're going to see this. Like we kind of came from a basis of threat response that was Cisco specific, and you're going to see us do more and more with third parties going forward.
Great. Look forward to it.
All right, perfect. Well, hey, John, thank you so much. Pleasure as always to spend time with you. I definitely, for folks who haven't seen it, John's research piece is really interesting. A ton. I mean, he barely scratched the surface in terms of the data that was there. So, John, thank you so much. Really appreciate the time.
My pleasure.
And with that, I will hand it back to Jason. Jason, take it away.
All right, thanks, guys. That was a great discussion. I heard a couple of great things that I would echo as well. I mean, obviously, a big change in the way that we deploy security with a lot more remote access happening these days in our current environment. But simplifying policy management, simplifying the products in general, and using some of our data for automation and better threat prevention. And then some of those key last ones that we really hit on. That John really put us through our paces for. We want to be a partner with our customers, right? We don't want to just sell you a box and walk away. We want to be engaged and invested in the success of enabling security. And with that, it comes ease of use and deployment, and be an open ecosystem to work with other third-party technologies. and add that value in that direction. So, guys, great discussion, fantastic. I think I've got ways that I can show pretty much each one of those bullet points in our actual product, and that's what I love to do, is actually show the technology and show a demonstration. So at this point, I'd like to shift gears and actually do a demo of SecureX and show you how we've been working to make everything much more simple, much more effective, much more automated, and take some of the burden off of the shoulders of people that have, all of these challenges that we just talked about. So at this point, I said, let's switch over and take a look at the actual demo itself of SecureX. Okay, so as you can see here, we've logged into the SecureX interface here with our single sign-on. If I click in here, I'll get a multi-factor authentication challenge from Duo. And once we log in, you can see a beautiful dashboard that on the left-hand side is showing us some of the technologies that we've deployed and that we have available at our disposal. But one of the first things I want to talk about is the integrations and third-party connectivity. As John Oldsick talked about, leverage the existing infrastructure and work with what we already have and create value. So we can show you that we're going to be doing that heavily and making sure that we're focusing on some of those third-party applications. You see some of our integrations here. If I go into the actual applications, I can see a whole range of vendors and technologies that we can use, whether they're threat hunting feeds or SIM solutions or ticketing type of solutions. So all of these technologies are things that we're working with, and we'll be supporting dozens of vendors and continuing this list and growing and expanding over time. But let's move back over into the dashboard. And when we start off, what we're really aiming to do here is simplify the security through this kind of orchestration and automation. And so we can set up the ability to run these playbooks that will respond to certain incidents that we see in our environment and start to really take some of the burden off the shoulders of our security administrators. So let's start off with creating a new workflow here. And we'll go ahead and get this titled with a data exfiltration response so that we can set something up to respond to certain events that we see. And as we move over here into the left, we can start dragging different groups in to create a flow and an outline. So we'll start this off with an incident response, an incident assignment. So when we see a problem, let's kick off this flow by assigning the incident. And as we follow through and build out our movement and direction of what we're going to do, we can see that we'll have some investigation, we'll take some snapshots and do some threat response actions, and then even kick off some of those more third-party integrated communications with opening service tickets and communicating what's going on with the rest of our team here. So let's move in now to some of the individual functionalities that you see on the left-hand side. If we look down here at Cisco Threat Response with CTR, we can start off by creating an incident assignment, right? So we'll identify who is responsible for responding to this particular event. And then we'll add in some additional functionalities about grabbing some more observables, learning a little bit more about the environment, and even creating a snapshot from either CTR or Orbital or both. In this case, we can add Orbital forensic snapshot here to take a look at the endpoint or exactly what's happening with this problem. And then, like I said, start to deliver some automatic creation of service tickets and communications within ServiceNow and even within WebEx Teams as well. So now we've got a nice flow of what we want to do when we see a certain incident, and we can save this and run this. And now back at the dashboard, which is giving you a beautiful view of not just the products that you have, but some of the key statistics that we have seen and watching our burn down rates. But what we see on the right-hand side are a few different interesting events. And so one here is the threat hunting incident, where we're doing some threat hunting and integrating some information there. That's interesting, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. But what's even more interesting is that potential data exfiltration alert. Now, that has actually kicked off a few automated activities that you see down here at the bottom right, where we've assigned the incident, we've created a ticket and assigned it to a incident responder. And this is all executing the playbook that we just created. So if we expand this, we'll see even a little bit more information about this particular alert. It looks like StealthWatch Cloud has identified some communication to a known bad server in China. We see on the bottom left here the actual playbook running step by step that we created in the previous screen, right? So now we're moving from the enabling of that automation through the orchestration to unifying the visibility across all of these different technologies. And now I can start to investigate and get into the actual response of that. Here, this takes me into Cisco Threat Response and maps out what we've seen here with a malicious SHA-256 that came down to an endpoint before he started communicating to a malicious website there. So first thing I may want to do is isolate that endpoint. I can start my host isolation. Now I see our endpoint security technology has acknowledged that that endpoint has been locked down. And as we move forward, I may want to say, let's make sure that nobody else goes to that URL and that domain. So here I can block this domain, and our secure internet gateway is going to be able to make sure that we've got that domain blocked, and nobody else, whether they're on or off the network, will be able to access that domain. So we protected the whole network, identified the threat, protected the whole network, and isolated the offending host, all within a matter of seconds here in real time. So if we take a look at some of the other aspects of this as we're moving across our workflow, earlier you remember that threat hunting incident where we saw some information that we were looking for. Maybe it was a Talos blog, or maybe a CVE entries, or maybe some other threat hunting information sources. So we started to scan and see where we might see some of that activity within our network. And sure enough, Orbital is saying, hey, yeah, one of those IP addresses is communicating out to this malicious IP address. So we'll want to make note of that. But you'll also notice that as I'm moving across multiple products here, the SecureX ribbon down here at the bottom is staying with me, so I can always bounce back to individual interfaces or straight back to the dashboard, which is what I'll do here after we see a little bit of information that's happened here on the threat scan. So once now we've moved back and you've seen a whole host of information. Number one, we've seen a lot of third-party integration to help you leverage your existing investments out there. Working with these other technologies is absolutely key. We know we don't do everything in the world, and we're not trying to boil the ocean, but we're trying to integrate and simplify. We've created a unified level of visibility here across all of your security technologies, all of them working together. And even as you're moving across different interfaces from your internet gateway to your email security gateway to your endpoint technologies, we're staying with you and facilitating the movement across all of those through this SSO login capability that we've created here. And then finally, enabling that automation, that is going to allow us to take a lot of that burden off of the shoulders of IT administrators. There's too much going on out there for us to try to do all this stuff manually. So let's let the technology do what the technology does best and start to respond automatically when we see certain things. And there's lots of other use cases that you can look into about monitoring our VPN usage, or identifying Office 365 IP addresses that you'll want to enable in your firewall policies. All of these types of things can be enabled in an automated fashion, in a customized fashion, in addition to the templates that we have. And so the end result of all of that is that we're strengthening your security, we're simplifying the things that you have to do on a regular basis, and trying to make it a faster time to detect, a time to respond, and integrate with what you've got. And that's what SecureX is bringing to the table, and that's why it's such an exciting product. So if you want to learn a little bit more about this technology, obviously you can always go to cisco.com/go/SecureX. As I mentioned, this is integrated and comes with any Cisco security technology, so you already have access to it. Just log in and start using it. It's very easy to set up, and you'll start to see the value of it immediately, I'm quite certain.
That was awesome. Now to end today, we've got a great customer fireside chat with Lou Saviano from Skillsoft and Steve Martino, who's the CISO for Cisco. Now for attendees watching live, remember to ask questions in the Q&A panel and on social media, and our team is standing by to answer them. So with that, let's listen to the great fireside chat.
Hey Lou, it's good to see you again. Before we jump into the dialogue and this discussion we're going to have today, can you tell us a little bit about what Skillsoft is and what your role is there at Skillsoft?
Hi, Steve. Nice to see you again also. My role at Skillsoft is I'm the Vice President of Global IT. And Skillsoft is an e-learning company. We have online books, online training. We also do succession planning from the HR and competencies. So we have a broad range and depth of different kinds of content that we provide. And my role pretty much is anything that has to do with the employee. And I also do a lot of the CISO type of role, even that isn't though my formal title. And I also do a lot of the data protection and privacy and work closely with legal and HR.
That's awesome. And I think that whole industry around training, online training, remote training is going to be even more important in the days going forward. So that's really great. As we jump into it, we've seen a lot of change in the last couple of months with COVID, with remote workers, new security threats, new business models that we're sort of adjusting to. How has that impacted your role at Skillsoft, and what are you doing to support the business going forward?
I believe the opportunity, what I've observed is IT, by the nature of what we do, we have to be very proactive. We've always had disaster recovery and failover and making sure that no one in IT was single-threaded. So I believe this COVID virus gave us the opportunity to be more of a trusted advisor to the business because it's just nature of how we work. In some businesses, not just Skillsoft, but in general, I've been talking to other companies too, is they may or may not have understood possible gaps they've had because, the focus of the business and the nature of how it works versus, a typical IT organization. So I think we've been able to show them, and right from the go when we started working everybody from home, we were the best positioned of anybody in the company to do that seamlessly.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think the business is also transforming, and people are doing more online all the time. And as we do more and more remote work, and I think many corporations have realized they can function in a remote environment. How do you think that's going to affect Skillsoft and the security of Skillsoft's customers, products, and delivery to your customers?
I think the Skillsoft business, like you were saying before, because being an online company, and pretty much we're about 50% of remote workers already. We were well positioned, and I think the demand, and I agree, is going to be even higher in the future. I think from supporting our customers, a lot of our customers, both internally and externally, we're already in a hybrid world. In fact, a lot of our business systems too were, in the cloud. And then our customers in particular working on our cloud solutions and then interacting with us any different way, in this whole collaborative world. So I think more than ever, the security is a high priority to them. I'm getting more questions than ever, and I'm getting a broader range and in depth, especially. It's no longer just a checklist answer, which I'm happy about. I think we needed to get beyond that. And I think even more that I had to rely on my vendors to have a complete solution. Any visibility gaps I have in this new world is, I think it's going to be a bigger exposure than ever before.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Like Skillsoft, I think Cisco was also in a good position to move to a work from remote worker kind of environment. About 80% of our employees had all the capabilities to work remotely when this hit. So there was a few that we had to scale up and support. But then it's really about how you adjust how people work, how you lead differently through a remote worker environment versus an on-prem environment and some of those kinds of things. And I'm sure you and your company have experienced some of that as well. Moving forward, I think one of the things that have really helped a lot of companies, or really impacted a lot of companies, is planning for the unknown. And as you said a little bit ago, we always did disaster planning, but most of our disaster planning was, a tornado hit or a tsunami, or we lost power. And so what did we need to do there? But I think what this has really done, in the mode that I talk to a lot of peers in the industry, is how do we plan for the unknown? How do we deal with things that we just couldn't anticipate? And what can we do today to deal with those unknowns? How are you approaching that?
It's two major factors. 50% I consider the user and 50% technical. So the 50% of the user, if I have a good culture of the company I'm working for, that's important. It has to flow from top down. It's not a bottom-up culture from a security and data protection. And then security awareness training, which luckily at Skillsoft, we do that so that works. It's a lot of load off my plate for us security awareness training. I do a lot of phishing exercises. And again, I simplify it. I rate my employees either low, medium, or high-risk users. And right now, we're almost 100% low-risk users. So that program is working too. And, people take pride in it. Now, the 50% technical, that's where I focus on the landscape, the Cisco tools, etc. And plus, even of that, most of it, I look at it as the web front end, the browsers, the interfaces. Very rarely now we putting, fat clients on the desktop. So it's really everything through the web, which then has changed our threat landscape. And then again, how I use your tools. And so to me, that makes it a little simplifier. If I look at this from all the different angles, it gets too complex. And then it becomes hard for my people to understand too. And also, I can't speak intelligently to the business leaders. I have to be able to talk to the executives and the boards and that ELT and make it easily understandable, give them the confidence that we have it under control. And if it's a very complex conversation, then we both lose it. So again, this is the need for the simplification, at least in my mind.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I try to do that. I think of it almost like I'm a translator. I have to translate from one context to another, and as part of that, it's making it simple and understandable for whoever I'm talking to. Speaking of which, as we sort of transition a little bit here, I know you've been a Cisco customer, Cisco security customer. How is Cisco helping you transform Skillsoft and improve the security and trustworthiness of your company?
There's a couple different angles where the Cisco suite has been able to help me, and plus your resources, especially I would say the last couple of years, especially either whatever way it's happened, I've gotten to work more and more with you and others and your security people, so it's been a huge help. But so the resources I have to be as efficient as possible, and to me, I hate spending any time on run and maintain type of activities unless forced to. So my goal is to minimize run and maintain and do stuff that's helping to grow and transform our company. And to do that, I have to have our people freed up from doing menial tasks. So working with your people, understand where your products are going, what they can do today, and even making sure that we're properly using them, that automates a lot of those processes. So then when we get an alert or we think something's happening in our environment, we can jump on it quicker. We can make a better determination if it's a real incident or not, which at the end of the day is my responsibility to the company and to our customers. If there's an incident, determining what level that is and reacting and communicating as fast as possible. And I believe, especially with the SecureX and the integration of your products, I'm going to be better positioned to do that. And so then I'm going to be able to give within a certain period of time business at what is really happening so that now the ELT can make the proper decisions on what we have to do. That to me is key. And also simplifying, I can't have tools either from the same company or multiple companies. If I want to do a simple thing of blocking a bad site, I have to go into 10 different tools and use 10 different people. Integrate the tools. It can't be that hard. So when I do a block, if I'm in my CASB or I'm in my firewall, whatever, it blocks it. And not everybody then tries. If we unblock it, we have to remember if we unblocked it versus waiting for the business user to go up and help desk call that something's not working. It's just embarrassing, I think, in general of our profession, if we can't do a simple task of blocking something through one tool.
I think that's those are all great things, and it connects back to your simplicity, the reduced time to detect and contain whatever threats you're having, and make sure that the efficacy of those are really, really high. I've always put those metrics at the top of my security chart, along with one other, which is, am I managing my environment, patching and vuln management and all those things? If I'm doing that and I can detect and contain a threat, I'm probably going to not be on the headline of many newspapers very often. So I really appreciate your comments around that, and they match and gel very much. I know we have a time limit. I want to run into a couple of quick questions for you. You're like me, a gray-haired, long-time veteran in the IT world. If you were to share one experience that you've had over your career with someone that's new to the industry, or not as gray and experienced as you and I, what would that one lesson be that you'd want them to know and take away?
I would want them to know, if you want to be good in this business, and one of the reasons why I believe a lot of the best people in this business do have gray hair, is the complexity. I love the complexity, as far as I love to learn. I love a challenge, and it takes time. There's multiple different vectors this is happening, as far as the endpoints and the networks and governments attacking my company and others on a daily basis. And this is not something to learn overnight. And then you can't be just a technical closet person. I was a Unix guru previously, and then I was into artificial intelligence. And then I got into the business side. It takes that whole cross-section of experiences and abilities to do this job right. The best CISOs I know in this business have all those different views, and then they leverage the resources within the department and across the company, and then we mentor. And I believe everybody should be a good mentor. If I was going to say anything while you're learning, look for a mentor, and then someday pay it forward as soon as possible. That's how I think we become the best at this business, and plus you'll be happier in the end.
That's a great answer. And the last thing I want to ask you about is, and you mentioned the Cisco partnership. I appreciate your partnership. I appreciate you being a big customer of Cisco and willing to spend some time talking with all of our customers and me today. But I think those partnerships are critical, and having those few people that you can trust and those organizations that you can trust. How would you share to our audience today what that Cisco partnership and relationship meant to you, and how should they best exploit that?
To me, part of being a trusted partner is I share everything with my trusted partners or with Cisco, as far as projects and my challenges, and sometimes when I'm upset with something and sometimes when I'm happy, and I'm just open about it. To me, that's the level what I get out of the relationship, and it's really beyond the technical pieces. To me, a lot of the times the technical pieces is the easy part. A partnership is saying, okay, wait a minute, this didn't go good. Well, I have some couple people that I can help you. It's not about another license, or it's not trying to sell you something else. And the same thing on my end. I can get back to you and say, yeah, I know you think the tool is doing this, but in the real world, I'm seeing this. And you say, oh, great. Or I'd say, you know what? I was able to do this. I noticed someone's machine was being compromised before we even saw it in the endpoint solution, leveraging the CASB. And it's like, well, wait a minute, think about that. Because at the end of the day, some of these tools have the capabilities to do stuff that we may not know what it was designed to, but it becomes a side benefit. So I think us working together makes the tools better and relationship better.
I've known you for a little while, and all of those words are exactly the way that you work with us and live your life. And I really appreciate you taking time today with us to share your thoughts and insights with our customers, and very much for being a partner of Cisco and letting us be your partner. Thanks a lot, Lou. To the whole audience, take care and have a good day.
Wow, what an incredible way to spend the day. Thank you to everyone watching and for spending part of your day with us. We hope that you found it informative, inspirational, and that we shared some practical tips to help make your day job in cybersecurity a little bit better.
Yeah, when we talk about SecureX, we're really talking about integration. The integration gives us additional visibility, it gives us automation, and that gives you time back with your teams, your loved ones, and to be able to do your job more effectively. So if you want to learn more about SecureX, definitely stop by our website at cisco.com/go/SecureX.
Yes, absolutely. And remember to check out our new Simplify to Secure report too. There's also loads of information on the SecureX Cisco.com page too. Thank you so much for staying with us and joining our broadcast, and have a great rest of your day.
Okay, so here we go. I want to talk about real news. So let's talk about what we're going to launch today.
Here we go! All of you have made some pretty amazing things possible over the years.
We got WebEx, we got TP, we can do it wherever we like.
Hello. Hey, how are you?
We're human. Be human, remain that, connect with others.
Connectivity and information is really a form of aid in and of itself.
This is what it's all about. This is why we do what we do.
I am going to use Cisco video technology to surprise them right now.
These are huge topics. Where do you see us going in the future?
Talk with me. Let's have a conversation.